Good afternoon, thank you for joining me for another episode. Today we're looking at a 2021 Schecter Keith Merrow 6 Mark III Hybrid Signature Guitar in Snowblind White. We're going to be doing some cool things to this, changing out the pickup, setting it up for a slightly thicker, lower tuning. But for now, Ricky, run the montage. We're going to start with the initial inspection, just working through this service certificate. These are available to download from our website, drguitars.co.uk. If you've got a guitar you want to set up and you want to kind of work through it the same way that I'm doing, you can download this off my website for free, print it out and join me for the process. So, initial inspection, truss rod, tighten or loosen. There is a little bit of a bow in the neck, but we are going to be dropping this to G sharp, so really low tuning. So we'll look at the neck after we've put the thicker strings on and corrected the tuning. So for now it doesn't really matter whether you truss rod setting because we're going to be moving it later on. In terms of everything else, the neck is adjustable. I really like they've got these Ernie Ball style truss rod wheels on the bottom. It's a carbon reinforced necklace as well, so it's a pretty good spec. 24 jumbo frets, stainless steel as well. Hip shot bridge on this as well, so really good bridge, nice and easy to adjust, nice and simple, solid bit of kit, so that's really cool. We're going to be installing some set of Bare Knuckle Ragnarok Pickups in like a cool like zebra finish. So I'm going to be showing you through the process of how I install pickups. We're also going to be replacing the pot because it's got a 25k active pot in the moment, so we're just going to replace that with a 500k for a humbucker. In terms of everything else, we've got Schecter locking tuners. They're in really good condition, working as they should. The nut's good, the neck's good. It is maple, but it's lacquered maple, so it's not porous in the sense that you don't need to oil it or anything like that. So lacquered maple boards are really nice because they're really easy to clean, so no excuse if you've not been cleaning it. Output jack's in good order, so we're going to be using the existing, even though that is a stereo output jack, we're just going to wire it up in a mono configuration, so basically just leaving one of the tags unsoldered. Three-way switch is working fine, no tone control, so it's literally just going to be a master volume on this one. Everything else on the guitar, the screws are good, pickup seated correctly, yes they are, but we're going to be taking them out. Hardware's in good condition, strap pins are a little bit loose. We've got these DiMarzio clip lock straps on there, so clip lock straps on there, but they're a bit loosey goosey, so we're going to tighten them up. Strings wise, we're going to be using Dario, so we're using a 68 single on the bottom, which is going to replace the 62 that comes in the pack. The pack is EXL158, link below if you need it. So the overall gauge is going to be 68 on the bottom for drop G, 46, 36, 26 wound, 17 and a 13, so quite thick on the strings. But to handle that low, it's not just drop G sharp as well, it's an open tuning that Kris uses, so it's essentially dadgad but in drop G, if that makes sense. It sounds pretty cool. We'll have a little listen to how it starts later on. I can't get my words out today, don't know why. So for now we are not going to be working through the inspection sheet in the order like I usually do. I'm going to jump to taking the strings off and getting these pickups in, because that's the main thing that we're going to be focusing on the guitar today. Everything else is working really cool. Just quickly on tools then, I'm going to be using just my normal sort of regular tools really. So got these crescent snips, really sort of heavy duty spring loaded snips. These are really good for cutting strings, just make it really easy. Waverly string winder, so this has got what's called a compound radius on it, so it's a 12-inch radius at the 12th fret and a 16-inch at the 24th, and kind of everywhere in between. It's kind of it glides from a 12 up to a 16. If you don't know much about the radius, basically it's just the curvature of your neck. The lower the number, the steeper it is. The higher number, the flatter it is. We've got our Stumac nut drivers, Lindstrom snips, needle nose pliers. We've got a bit of heat shrink for the pickups. Got a 1.3 and a 2mm Allen head for the saddles and for removing the knob. We've got a PH2 electrician's screwdriver. We've got our 500k pot. We've got the new pickups. And what else? 25.5-inch Music Nomad fret shield, makes polishing frets really easy. These frets are nigh on immaculate, to be honest, but we'll still just do it anyway because, you know, it comes as part of the setup process. So let's go ahead and remove these strings. This is obviously a left-handed guitar as well, so when you're stringing these up. If you're doing it for someone else and you are right-handed, just remember that you need to put the strings on effectively the wrong way around. I've definitely done that before when I've been tired and not really concentrating, sticking the thickest string through here, and you don't realise until, you know, you're halfway through it. Anyway, so we shall not be doing that today. So just a little bit of a clean down then. Just notice that this hip shot bridge is wiggling around, so it's not very good. So we're going to make sure we tighten that up later on. A little bit of cleaner. Just give these machine heads a little bit of a tighten up. Make sure they're not wiggling around. Like I said, this guitar's only 2 years old, so you know, it's quite expensive as well. I think we valued it at 1,500 quid, so you know, it's on the higher end of the Korean guitar market. There's a little bit of tape on the top of here as well. Let's lift a bit of gunk, so we'll just get rid of that. Other thing I noticed as well when I was just when I first got this guitar in, is it's got a sort of like a satin neck, so you can see there's sort of like a gloss lacquer here, but if you, I don't know if you can sort of see, but it's slightly faded here. It's got like a satin finish, so it just makes it quicker. You know, like I say, if you're playing really fast, noodly, you know, Dragon Force-esque stuff, having a satin finish on the back of your guitar can just make it that bit quicker. But we're just going to check the screws on the back of the machine heads, just make sure they are nice and tight. Now you can see there's a battery box on here because it's got an active circuit in there. We're going to remove this battery because we're not going to be using it anymore with these passive pickups. Well, I've just got the back over, actually. I'm just going to remove these screws and just have a look at under the hood, see what we're working with. So then we'll get started with the pickups. Lots of wires here. Most of this is going to get taken out. At the moment I'm just eyeballing everything just to see where everything's at. So I've just downloaded this off the Bare Knuckle website. It's just a really straightforward setup. The only difference with this is it's even simpler. So we're not going to be wiring in the tone pot. There is no tone pot. So it's literally just going to be a master volume, 3-way switch and the output jack. So before we take the pickups out, I'm just going to remove any wires from this setup that we are going to be using later. So I'm going to leave the pots in situ, so not going to loosen off the pots at the back, just leave them as they are for now, so you've got a nice sort of solid foundation to work to. And then as we start to remove wires, we can then remove some of the parts that go with it. So at the moment this grey wire is going to the output jack, and this is our ground and our signal from the send of the pot to the input of the output jack, if that makes sense. So because that's all kind of nailed in there, I'm going to just cut this free and start again fresh. So that's our output jack wire, which obviously we're going to be keeping. Now this other black wire that's going to the jack is wired to the 9-volt. So you've got 2 wires on your 9-volt for the positive and the negative terminals. Get rid of this battery because we don't need it anymore, because Bare Knuckles are passive pickups. Well, these ones are anyway. The switch, so we're going to keep using the switch that's there. All right, so at the moment we've got the input, so this yellow and the blue here are the inputs from the pickups into here. So let's just have a look. So the output of the switch goes to the input of the volume, is that right? Actually, yeah, we'll just swap those on. Oh, we're not using that pot anyway, are we? So let's just, so I'll take this out. Okay. Take him off. And again, we're going to be reusing the switch wire, so we're just going to leave that where it is. So I'm just going to make a note of which is which on the switch. So usually I'll just do like a little drawing of the back of the switch. We've got 2 lugs there, 2 lugs there. So, okie dokies. So, and the other 2 are just going to be blank, and then it's shielded to the side. So now we're just going to remove everything else that we don't need to keep. So, as I said, we're keeping the jack and the switch, but we're replacing the pot and the pickups. So we're now just going to remove these one at a time. Cool, so now we've taken everything off the back of the pot, we're just going to get rid of that and move that out the way. Okay, so that's now out. And then even if you think you're not going to use this again, so yeah, you can see, sorry, 25, can you see that on the camera? 25k. And what you need with passive humbucking pickups is 500. On single coils you typically use 250. I'm just going to eye up the hole for the pot and see if it fits. I've got a feeling it's not going to. Oh yeah, it looks like it's just going to go. Just to make sure, I'm just going to use this to just widen that a touch, make sure you're not choking on any wires inside. Just gives it a nice clean hole to fill into. Yeah, that's good. Okay, this is just something I got off Amazon. It just helps you clip your bits and pieces into. So if we look on the wiring diagram here, I know you can't see this very well, but basically you've got three prongs on the end of your pot. This one is going to be grounded to it, and then this is effectively going to be your output, and this is effectively going to be your input. So we just need to bend this back into position, and then I'm just going to solder this. You can either put a piece of wire between the 2 of them. I prefer just to solder it directly to it, because then you know you've got a really firm connection. So I'm going to have that like that. Okay, and then with a nice hot soldering iron, I use a Weller PU81. Again, all the tools that I use and everything like this, I think pretty much all of the tools that I'm using, I've got to put a link to them below. So if there's a particular thing that you like, you can just link to it and, you know, go and buy that straight away. And now you can see we've got a nice solid bit of contact on the back of there. And then we're just going to tin these. Tin just basically means dropping a fresh bit of solder on it, so they're prepped and ready for the wires to go straight onto. You want to kind of do as much prep with this as you can. It just makes your life a lot easier. So most pots will come with two nuts, a washer, and a retaining washer as well, a pot washer that sort of grips it from the underneath. So I'm going to take all of this off for now. Have a quick look at it, just make sure we can eyeball it and that everything's going to go in where we want it to. So that's fitting in nice. Now as the thread's sticking out here, you don't want that sticking out loads, because you're going to find that your knob, once you fit it onto there, it's going to be kind of like off the body and hanging down. So really you want this a little bit lower, sort of around there. So that's why it comes with 2 nuts. One of them you can use to basically adjust the height underneath, but because I want to lose quite a little bit, I'm going to put the nut all the way to the bottom, pot washer underneath that, and then that might be enough, and it is. So that's nice and in position now, and then we're just going to tighten this up. This is a CTS pot as well, so it's a good high quality CTS pot. I get this from Armstrong Music, it's where I get most of my parts from. Again, link below if you want to check them out. Usually about, 60 seconds after I've placed an order, I get a shipping confirmation and tracking and stuff like that. They don't mess about. Really recommend them. All to do now then is to remove these pickups, and then we are also going to have to do a little bit of drilling on the new pickups, and I'll show you why in a sec. So these are the Fishmans, active Fishmans that come with it. Really cool pickups, but they're just not quite doing it for Kris. Wanted to try something out, so he's got the Ragnaroks, the signature ones. Now these are marked on the pickup, but if they're not, usually I'll just kind of wrap it up with a little bit of tape. Nice into these little pickup baggies. And we're just going to pull these wires through. Right then, those are out of the way. So obviously we're going to start with the neck. And the reason we're going to start with the neck is because the wire goes through the bridge cavity to get to the main cavity under here. So you want to thread your neck pickup wire in first, obviously, because otherwise it'll be very difficult. But I'm just going to get them both out, eyeball them, see where we're at. So we are actually going to end up having to cut these back a little bit, the metal inserts. We're going to have to drill them as well, but that's all good. So we'll get that wire in kind of rough situ just for now. We'll get our other pickup out. And at the moment all we're doing is just literally eyeballing it up. Just going to flip this guy around. First thing we're going to do now then is we're just going to have to cut down the sides of these pickups. Now you want to use something really heavy duty for this, just like cheap sort of DIY snips aren't really going to do it. And we're basically just going to cut around this screw hole. Okay, same on the other side. But we're also going to need to cut round the edges of the plate as well, just to get it to fit. Now that fits much better in there, however, the pickup itself is still not going to fit. So we're just going to cut round the edges of this plate. Now, as long as you're not clipping any wires or snagging anything like that, this is absolutely fine to do. And you won't see it either because it's underneath the guitar, but because this is basically routed and we're drilling the pickup straight into the guitar as opposed to putting it in like a pickup surround, you just kind of got to do what you got to do to get it to fit. Okay, and she's in. So now we've kind of got that roughly where it needs to be. I'm going to do the same on the other pickup. We've cut these down. Either side of these pickups, you've got these your mounting holes. And for a typical configuration, when it's going into a pickup surround, you want the insert to be threaded, i.e. when you twist the screw, the pickup comes up and down. When you're fixing it directly to the body like this, you don't want the screw to move it up and down. You want it to move freely through it, because all you're doing essentially is screwing the pickup into the body, and then the sponge underneath, these bits, are what give it the resistance to push it back up again. So we're going to use the screws that came with it because they're the perfect size for they've got these little threaded inserts inside the pickup surrounds. So what we need to do is just drill out the insert, the threaded insert in there, and just basically make it just one solid round circle. So this screw is 2mm, so I'll get a 2.5mm bit, and we're just going to drill through those little holes. Now just check the screw fits, and as you can see, that just drops straight through now, which is exactly what we want. So same on the other side. Obviously just be really careful when you're doing this. That one's dropped straight through. That's it. So we'll just secure this neck one into position. And in terms of configuration, we're going to do this pole to pole. So that's in now, super solid. Super solid. And then same again on the other side. Now just make sure as well that these the wires are going around the foam. You don't want it cutting across the middle of it, because if you sort of lower your pickup too low, you're going to run the risk of cutting the wires with the screw. So just give them plenty of room. Make sure as you're putting it in, you're not snagging any of the wires. Pickups are secure, they're in position. While we've got this open though, I'm just going to investigate this, because I don't know if you remember me saying earlier that this bridge was rattling around. It looks like the main screw there is come loose. Alright, so that's tightened up. 16 then. Oh, 17. Too big. So, Imperial then. 11/16. There we go, that's the one. So now we're going to consult our wiring diagram. So the green and the white here are already soldered together. If you were going to coil tap these so you can split the coils, we would unsolder those. But Kris just wants these, you know, just straight up. Humbucker. We'll just start off by cutting these back a little bit, because we don't want them too long. Solder them together, and then we're just going to use a little bit of this 2mm heat shrink just to cover up the rest of that. So you're just going to measure it roughly with your fingers. Cover that up, that's good. I'm just going to cut this down a little bit. And generally I like to do things kind of like systematically, so we're going to do the exact same with this one. So this is the bridge wire. Solder, and again just a small amount of heat shrink just to cover this up. Cut that down a touch, and then we'll just heat them up. Now you can do this with the end of the soldering iron, or just a little bit of fire like that. That's all you need to do, just 2 or 3 seconds. That's nipped up. So first off, we're just going to wire in the ground wire. This grounds all the hardware on the front of the guitar, so your strings, your saddles, your tuners. This grounds all of that stuff to the electronics. However, on active guitars, so EMGs, Fishmans and whatnot, you don't need a ground wire because it's grounded through the circuit. But on these you very much do if you don't put this in. And it's simply just a little wire that goes underneath the saddle plate, usually, to the back of the guitar. So to keep your fingers in good condition, you want to do this with some needle nose pliers, pre-tin the wire, and then we're just going to solder this to the back of the pot. So that's done. So the bridge plate's now grounded. I believe the neck pickup is going to go here. And then I'm just going to ground the ground onto the back of this pot. Some people like to put all the grounds together, and that's fine. It's a nice sort of tidy way to do it, but I prefer to do them individually, because then if you need to take something off, you're not having to sort of desolder tons of different things. So the output to the switch then to the input of the pot. So from the switch to the right side. Now, rather than pushing the wire through the hole, I like to just do it off to the side like that. So you want to hold that on until it's not budging anywhere. And then this is our output to the switch. So we'll get that on first, and then we're going to ground it to the back. This red wire is just for the battery compartment, so I'm just going to cut that down so it's out of the way. We'll just test now that that pickup is coming out of the right position on the switch. That's the neck. That's the bridge. Just taper the volume. Wicked. That's a good sign. So everything is where it needs to be. Just need to wire up the bridge pickup now and we'll be done. In terms of like excess cable in the back, years ago when I first started doing this, I used to make everything super neat and tidy in the back. I'd zip tie it all down and do everything at the perfect length. But after doing this for a while now, to be honest, I think for compromising a little bit of mess in the back to give you some extra slack to work with is more than fine. So generally now I just leave any extra slack that is available, just so that if you want to wire things up differently, or you know, add a coil tap or whatever, you've got plenty of wire to work with. This is just going to go onto the other side of the switch. So we're just going to tuck all our wires inside there. So we'll have a quick test to make sure that all works. Plugging it in would be handy, wouldn't it? So it should be the bridge. Should be no neck. That's both. And that's just the neck. Sweet. And also while we're here as well, we'll just get the knob reseated onto the new pot. Now unfortunately, this pot is just a little bit too big. These are pretty cool, these little pot sleeves, so it makes a split shaft essentially a solid one. So if you don't have a knurled insert on the in here, i.e. it's just, you know, an open sort of circle with no notches in it, you can put these little pot sleeves over the top and it just secures it and it stops it from wiggling around. So it's a nice little thing to do. Beautiful. Now, even though this is a brand new pot, I'm still going to bang a bit of switch cleaner in it, because you don't know how long the pot's been, you know, it might have been there for 5 years, might be a little bit dry inside, so we're just going to clear that out. But that's looking pretty cool, isn't it? Those zebra pickups, I think, suit the guitar quite well. Onto the frets. With the frets now then, we are just going to simply clean down the fretboard a little bit. As I said before, it's lacquered, so it's what they call non-porous, so i.e. nothing, it doesn't absorb any moisture. You can just clean this with anything really, water, bit of cleaner, whatever it is really. So we'll get our Music Nomad fret shield. This is the 25.5 scale, bit of peak compound. Safety first and all that. These are a different brand of gloves, these ones. They're a bit like glossy, look a bit kinky, don't they? Right, I use a Dremel polishing wheel, foot controller, so you've got a variable control on it with your foot. They're finished really nice, these frets. They've got a nice sort of rounded tang on them. Tang's just a fancy word for the end of the fret, I think. So we've moved the saddles back and forward. We know they're sort of functioning as they should be. As we said, it's a pretty new guitar in it, so all the saddles and everything like that are movable. By eyeballing it straight away, I can tell we are going to need to make some intonation adjustments. So let's get some strings on then, shall we? So as I've said in previous videos, I'm not personally a huge fan of locking tuners, especially when you're using thick strings. You can't really stretch the string as you need to. So what I tend to do is just put another wind, an extra wind around it. I'll show you what I mean by that. Typically with a locking tuner, you'd sort of pull it through like that and then tighten it up. But what I like to do is just pull it back a little bit and just go over the top and then underneath. So going to lock it off at the bottom, but we're also going to have basically an extra wind on the top. Now, it doesn't look as neat as it does to just sort of like pull it off, cut it off like nice and neat underneath. But trust me, this is a much better way to do it because you can stretch the string way better than you can when it's just gone through normally. Now, these tuners are feeling pretty loose on the back, so I'm just going to tighten these up as well. You don't want them too tight, but you don't want them too loose. You just kind of want them somewhere in the middle. I'm just going to push down on the string there. So you don't want like an arch there, you just want it completely flat. And just push it in there. See where we are, ballpark. Oh, it's flat. That's a good thing because we've got plenty of room the other way. So I'll just mute that while we pull some more strings through. And that's it basically. We're just going to copy that on each one. So going to pull back about a fret's worth of string. So I'll show you again. We'll loosen it off, pull it all the way through, make sure it's nice and tight there, pull it down, pull it across, pull it back about a fret, lock it off from underneath, and then you're going to go over the top and then underneath, sandwiching that string in the middle. So you're just going to keep going. It's a good idea to keep a fair bit of speed on this while you're going. Pull him out the way, and then that string will just tuck under really nice, effectively sandwiching the string in the middle of there, and it just ain't going to go nowhere. Okay then, so because this is a lefty, I'm going to have to sit and do this a little bit weirdly. So the first thing we need to look at now we've got all the strings on is what the neck tension's doing. So it has got a tiny bit of a bow. A little bit of a bow is okay, but I fear that there's not really much tension in this at all. So I'm just going to drop into it and give it a little tighten. See what that does. And you're looking basically down the main thick string, the bottom E or whatever it is you're using, in this case G sharp, and you kind of use the string as a straight edge, and then you're looking at the rest of the neck to see if it's straight. So it's just kind of one of those things you've got to do yourself. It's quite hard to explain really, but essentially you want as close to a perfectly straight neck as you can get with just a tiny little bit of relief in. So you don't want it perfectly straight because you're going to start having problems. You want it just a little bit lower. So that's farting all over the shop. So what we're going to do now is just raise up the saddle slightly just to compensate. And then once we've got the bottom string dialed in, we'll do the next string, and once we've done that one, we'll have a look with the radius gauge. I'm just going to split the difference on that tension. Just going to relieve it just a little bit. Sorry about that. And we'll just get our radius gauge and have a little look against it. And basically what you're measuring here is the curvature or the radius of the saddle. Now when you've got a big thick string on the bottom, you can basically ignore that one because you're always going to have that a little bit higher than it needs to be. I think all of these can come down quite a bit now. Just going to lift that up a fraction. Apologies for this terrible playing, it's struggling a bit with the old left-handed vibes. I think that one can come down a touch. Now with regards to fret buzz, in a thicker tuning, you're just going to have to deal with a little bit of fret buzz. It's always going to be there, but it's not the end of the world. You just got to find that sweet spot between getting it where you want. Obviously you don't want it buzzing like crazy. When it's open, it's not. So dialing in the intonation now then. So open on the 12th. A little bit on the flat side. So if it's flat, you want to make it shorter. If it's sharp, you want to make it longer. Little on the flat side, so we're just going to make it a little bit shorter. Bit sharp, so we're just going to split the difference, make it a little bit longer, and I think that's pretty much bang on now. Sweet, that's good. Right, so quickly then, so all the intonation is dialed in, we're just going to normalise the pickups now. So the bridge is a lot hotter than the neck. So I'm going to lift up the neck a little bit, and I'm just going to drop the bridge down a touch. Sound pretty good to me? Cool. We are just going to work through and tighten up the strap locks because they're a little bit loosey-goosey. Looking pretty fly this, isn't it, with these zebra pickups. I think they really suit it. You can hear the difference in the pickup straight away. The great sounding pickups, these Ragnaroks. Big difference between passive and active, kind of depends what you want really, what you're trying to get out of it. But you know, if you're not into sort of super fizzy, high gain kind of stuff, you can get sort of a much better tone, I think personally, through using passive pickups and then kind of driving it with pedals and amps and stuff like that. So I think we're just about finished then. We'll do the final little checklist. The preset up intonation was not applicable because we changed the gauges. So tuners have been cleaned and tightened, no string tree. Nut slots have been cleaned and lubricated. Frets have been cleaned and polished. Fretboard cleaned and not oiled, but you know, that's all good. Strings installed, of course. Neck tension, we ended up putting a bit of relief in there in the end. Action, radius and intonation we've done. We have not quite yet stretched the strings, so we'll do that last. Pots cleaned, jacks cleaned, switches cleaned, pickups normalised, strap pins tightened up. So we're just going to be stretching up the strings now. And that's just about it for today. So this has been a 2021 Schecter KM6 Mark III. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, share amongst your pals. I do one of these every week now, so I think every Saturday or Sunday there's going to be a brand new episode. Any comments, drop a comment below, happy to reply to it. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Cheers, see you later.